A single father, a 6-year-old girl with a heart too big for this world, and a broken woman on a bench clutching the last photograph of someone she'd lost forever. What happened next on that ordinary Saturday morning at a Portland bus stop would change 3 lives in ways none of them saw coming. Before we continue, please tell us where in the world are you tuning in from? We love seeing how far our stories travel. The bus stop on Division Street wasn't crowded that Saturday morning. Just one person sat on the weathered bench, a young woman with blonde hair tangled around her face, wearing worn clothes that looked like they'd been slept in. She was crying. Not the loud, attention-seeking kind of crying, the silent kind. The kind that comes from somewhere so deep that words can't reach it anymore. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she clutched a crumpled photograph in her trembling hands, staring at it like it was the only thing keeping her tethered to this world. Collins Briggs noticed her. His first instinct was protective, not of the woman, but of his daughter. Abigail's small hand was warm in his calloused palm as they walked to the farmer's market, their Saturday morning ritual. At 6 years old, Abigail had a tendency to notice things most adults train themselves to ignore, and Collins knew his daughter well enough to know that she'd already seen the crying woman. "Daddy," Abigail whispered, tugging on his hand. Her brown eyes, so much like her mother's, looked up at him with concern that seemed too heavy for such a small face. "That lady is really sad." Collins gently tried to steer them to the other side of the sidewalk. "I know, baby, but sometimes people need space when they're upset." They were almost past the bus stop when Abigail stopped walking entirely. She let go of his hand.
"Abigail," Collins started, but his daughter was already moving toward the bench with that determined walk she got when she'd made up her mind about something. The woman looked up, startled, as a small girl in a peach jacket appeared in front of her. Her first instinct was to wipe her tears, embarrassed to be seen so vulnerable by a child. Abigail stood there for a moment, studying the woman with the kind of directness only children possess. Then she spoke, her voice clear and gentle. "I think you need a hug. Can I hug you?" Her little arms were already opening. The woman's face crumpled. Fresh tears spilled over, but something in them had changed. She nodded, unable to form words, and the little girl wrapped her arms around her as far as they would go. Collins stood frozen, a few feet away, his throat suddenly tight. He watched his daughter hold this stranger with the same fierce tenderness she showed him when he came home exhausted from construction sites, too tired to do anything but collapse on their couch. "It's okay," Abigail said softly, patting the woman's back. "My daddy says crying helps the sad come out, so happy can come back in." The woman let out a sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob. She gently hugged the child back, her shoulders shaking. For the first time in what might have been days or weeks, someone was touching her with kindness instead of suspicion. Collins approached slowly, every protective instinct on high alert, but something in the moment felt genuine, sacred even. "I'm sorry," the woman said, her voice hoarse and raw. I pulled back from Abigail, wiping her face with her sleeve. "I'm not usually—" "No apologies needed," Collins said quietly, sitting down on the bench. He kept Abigail between them, a father's caution still present despite the tenderness of the moment. "I'm Collins. This is my daughter Abigail." "LOD," she managed, her voice barely above a whisper. "That's a pretty name. Why are you so sad?" "Abigail, that's personal," Collins started, but Elodie shook her head. "It's okay." She looked down at the photograph in her hand, then held it out so Abigail could see. It showed 2 women at a Christmas dinner table, laughing, their faces bright with joy. One was clearly a younger version of Elodie. The other was older, with the same blonde hair and warm smile.
"Is that your mommy?" Abigail asked. Elodie nodded, her jaw tight as she fought back another wave of tears. "Yeah, she was. She died 8 months ago,"
Pancreatic illness. It happened so fast we didn't even have time to say all the things we needed to say. She touched the photograph gently, like it might disintegrate if she pressed too hard. Today would have been her 54th birthday. The words hung in the air between them. Collins felt something crack open in his chest. That specific kind of recognition that only comes from shared loss. He knew exactly what it felt like to have the calendar turn into a minefield of painful anniversaries. "I'm sorry," he said, and the way he said it made Elodie look at him more closely. There was understanding in his voice, not pity, understanding. "You get it," she said. Not a question, a statement. Collins nodded slowly. 3 years now. Some days are easier than others. Most days aren't easy at all. Abigail squeezed Elodie's hand. "My mommy went to heaven too. Daddy says she's watching us from the stars." Elodie's eyes filled again, but she managed a sad smile. "What was your mommy like?" "Daddy says she was really good at making pancakes, and she always sang when she was happy. Daddy says I got her eyes." Collins put his hand on his daughter's shoulder, steadying himself as much as her. They didn't talk about their mother often. It still hurt too much. But Abigail was right. She did have her mother's eyes. He looked at Elodie, really looked at her. Beneath the worn clothes and tangled hair, he could see someone who'd once had a different life. There was education in the way she spoke, careful articulation even through the tears. "Do you have somewhere to stay?" he asked gently. Elodie's jaw tightened, pride warred with honesty in her expression. "Different places," she said carefully. "The shelter when there's room. Sometimes there isn't room."
"What about food?" She didn't answer, which was answer enough. Abigail looked up at her father with those big, knowing eyes. "Daddy, she's hungry." "I know, baby." Collins made a decision. "Elodie, we're heading to the farmer's market. Would you join us?" "My treat. Abigail never lets me pick the right apples anyway." Elodie hesitated, every survival instinct she developed over the past month screaming at her to be careful, to not trust too easily. But there was something about this man and his daughter that felt safe, real. "I don't want to be a burden," she said quietly. "Please," Abigail said, still holding her hand. "You can teach me how to pick the good apples. Daddy always gets the mushy ones." Despite everything, Elodie laughed, a real laugh that surprised even her. "Okay, I guess I'm an apple expert now." They walked the 3 blocks to the farmer's market together, an unlikely trio. Abigail positioned herself between Collins and Elodie, holding both their hands, chattering about everything and nothing. "I'm in 1st grade. My teacher is Mrs. Patterson, and she has a really loud voice, but she's nice. My best friend is Maya, and she has a dog named Biscuit. Do you like dogs? I want a dog, but Daddy says we're not home enough." Collins watched Elodie listen to his daughter with genuine interest, occasionally asking questions that made Abigail light up even more. There was patience in the way Elodie engaged with her, the kind of natural comfort with children that you can't fake. As they walked, Collins found himself studying Elodie's profile when she wasn't looking. She couldn't be more than 28, maybe 30? Too young to have experienced the kind of loss that aged your eyes the way hers were aged. "How long since you ate something warm?" he asked quietly, while Abigail was distracted by a street musician. Elodie's step faltered slightly. "Tuesday, I think? Maybe Monday. The days kind of blur together. The shelter doesn't provide meals? When they have room, they do, but there's more people than beds most nights." She said it matter-of-factly, without self-pity, just stating the reality of her world. Collins felt anger rise in his chest, not at her, but at the series of circumstances that had led someone educated and capable to sleeping on streets. "What did you do before I was homeless?" Elodie finished for him without bitterness. "I worked at Powell's Books, the big one on Burnside. Did inventory, customer service, ran the children's Saturday reading program." A ghost of pride crossed her face. "I have a degree in library science from Portland State." "What happened?" Elodie was quiet for a moment, watching Abigail skip ahead to look at a window display. "My mom got sick. Pancreatic illness doesn't mess around, it moves fast and it's expensive. I took time off to take care of her, used it my sick days, then my vacation days, then started missing shifts because she needed round-the-clock care those last few weeks." She swallowed hard. "I got let go 3 weeks before she died. Lost the apartment 2 months after that. Couldn't afford it on unemployment, and medical bills had taken everything we had.
I tried finding another job, but it's hard when you don't have an address for them to mail your W-2, you know? And I couldn't afford professional clothes for interviews. It's like, once you slip through the cracks just keep getting wider. Collins knew that spiral. If not for his union construction job with health insurance, if not for his brother Marcus helping with childcare when his wife died, he could have easily ended up in the same place. "I'm sorry," he said. "That's not fair." "Life rarely is," Elodie said with a slight shrug. Then she looked at him directly. "But it's strange. 8 months of barely surviving, and today, on what should be the hardest day, your daughter hugged me. A stranger. And now I'm walking to a farmer's market like a normal person having a normal Saturday." "You are a normal person," Collins said firmly. "Tell that to the people who cross the street when they see me coming." Before Collins could respond, Abigail ran back to them, grabbing both their hands. "We're here! Come on, they have the good donut stand."
The farmer's market was alive with Saturday morning energy. Vendors called out about fresh produce, artisan breads, handmade crafts. The smell of coffee and fresh pastries filled the air. Collins watched Elodie's face as they entered. For a moment, something like longing crossed her features, a memory of a different life when coming to places like this was normal, not a luxury. "Apple stand first," Abigail announced, pulling them toward a booth overflowing with different varieties. "Elodie, you have to show me the good ones." At the apple stand, something shifted. Elodie came alive in a way Collins hadn't seen yet. She picked up an apple, examined it carefully, then handed it to Abigail. "See how it's firm when you press it gently? No soft spots. And look at the color. This variety should have a deep red with these yellow undertones. That means it got enough sun." She held it up to Abigail's nose. "Smell the stem end. Smells fresh, right? Not fermented or weird." Abigail inhaled deeply and nodded, completely captivated. "That's a good apple," Elodie declared, and placed it in their bag. They went through the process with a dozen apples, Elodie teaching, Abigail learning, Collins watching with something warm spreading through his chest. His daughter was laughing, really laughing, and Elodie, for these few minutes, seemed to forget whatever darkness had brought her to tears on that bus stop bench. "How do you know all this?" Collins asked. "My mom and I used to come to farmers markets every Saturday. She grew up on a farm in eastern Oregon before she moved to Portland for nursing school. She taught me everything about picking produce." Her eyes went distant for a moment. "I haven't been to a market since she died. Couldn't afford it." "Daddy, can we get donuts?" Abigail pointed, at a stand where fresh donuts were being made, the smell of fried dough and cinnamon sugar wafting over. "Of course, baby." As they walked toward the donut stand, Elodie started to hang back, and Collins noticed. "You're getting a donut too," he said gently, but firmly. "Collins, I can't. When's the last time you had something warm and sweet?" She didn't answer. "That's what I thought." He ordered 3 donuts, handing one to Elodie along with a hot coffee. No arguments.
Elodie took the donut with shaking hands, and when she bit into it, Collins saw her eyes close. The expression on her face was almost painful to watch. Gratitude mixed with grief, mixed with the simple pleasure of warm food. They sat on a bench while Abigail watched a juggler perform. An idea had been forming in his mind for the past hour. It was probably crazy, definitely impulsive, but something about this woman and her story, something about the way his daughter had immediately connected with her, something about recognizing the same grief he carried every day, it all added up to a decision that felt both reckless and right. "Elodie," he said carefully, "I want to ask you something, and I need you to really think about it before you answer." She looked at him warily. "Okay." "I have a garage apartment. It's a studio above our detached garage in the backyard. The last tenant moved out 6 months ago, and I haven't had time to list it again." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "It needs some cleaning, maybe some paint, but it has heat, running water, a small kitchen. It's not much, but it's weatherproof and warm." Elodie's eyes widened.
Collins, I can't pay rent. I don't have... I'm not asking for rent, Collins interrupted. I'm asking for help. I don't understand. Collins looked over at Abigail, who was laughing at the juggler. I work construction. Long hours, early starts. Abigail is in after-school care until 6 most days, and she hates it. The woman who runs it is nice enough, but it's just TV and snacks in a church basement. No homework help, no real attention. He turned back to Elodie. I come home exhausted. Most nights I'm too tired to do anything but heat up chicken nuggets and pass out during bedtime stories. Abigail deserves better. She deserves someone who can pick her up from school, help with her homework, and maybe make sure she eats a vegetable once in a while. You want me to be a nanny?
I want to trade, Collins corrected. Room and board in exchange for childcare and some light housework. You'd have your own space, your own life, but you'd be there for Abigail when I can't be. You said you ran a children's reading program. You know how to connect with kids. Abigail already trusts you, which is rare. She's been cautious since her mom died. Elodie was silent, her mind clearly racing. I know this is forward. I know you don't know us, and we don't really know you. But I'm a good judge of character, and so is my daughter. And right now, I think we could help each other. Why would you do this? Elodie asked, her voice thick with emotion. You don't even know me. I know you're educated. I know you're grieving someone you loved deeply. I know you're capable. The way you taught Abigail about apples, the patience you showed with her questions. I know my 6-year-old daughter, who has better instincts about people than most adults I've met, wanted to hug you. He met her eyes. And I know what it's like to need someone to throw you a lifeline when you're drowning. Tears were streaming down Elodie's face again, but these were different from the ones at the bus stop. I don't know what to say, she whispered. Say you'll think about it, Collins said. The offer stands, no pressure. I'm not trying to be a savior or play hero. I'm just a single dad who needs help, offering help to someone who needs it. Fair trade. Elodie wiped her eyes, laughing weakly. Fair trade. That's what you're calling this? What would you call it? She looked at him for a long moment. I'd call it the kindest thing anyone has done for me in a very long time. Abigail ran back over, powdered sugar coating her nose. The juggler was so cool. He caught 5 balls. Daddy, can you juggle? Not even close, baby. Abigail looked between her father and Elodie, her 6-year-old intuition picking up on the emotional weight in the air. Is Elodie okay? Yeah, sweetheart. She's okay. Abigail studied Elodie's tear-streaked face, then wrapped her arms around her waist. I'm glad we found you today. Elodie hugged her back, closing her eyes. Over Abigail's head, she looked at Collins. Could I have some time to think about your offer? Of course. Take all the time you need. I don't have a phone, Elodie admitted quietly. Collins pulled out his phone and a receipt from his pocket, writing down his number. The library on Belmont opens at 10 tomorrow. Abigail and I go to Sunday story time there at 10:30 every week. If you want to talk more, find us there. Elodie took the receipt, folding it carefully like it was precious. The Belmont Library, 10:30. No pressure, Collins emphasized. If you decide it's not for you, no hard feelings. But if you want to give it a try, we'll make it work. As they prepared to part ways, Collins and Abigail heading home, Elodie to wherever she'd sleep that night, Abigail tugged on Elodie's coat. You'll come tomorrow, right, to the library? Elodie knelt down to Abigail's level, really looking at this small girl who had somehow changed the entire trajectory of her day with one simple hug. You know what? Yes, I'll be there. Promise? Abigail held out her pinky. Elodie linked her pinky with the child's, feeling the simple trust in that gesture like a weight and a gift at the same time. I promise. That night, as Collins tucked Abigail into bed in their small 2-bedroom house, she looked up at him with serious eyes. Daddy, why did you invite Elodie to live with us? Collins sat on the edge of his bed, thinking carefully about his answer. His daughter was young, but she was smart. She deserved honesty. Remember last month when you had that bad dream about monsters, and you said hugging Mr. Bunny made you feel safer? Abigail nodded, clutching the worn stuffed rabbit that had been hers since birth. Sometimes grown-ups need that too, not the stuffed animal part, but people to remind them they're not alone in the scary stuff. Elodie lost her mommy, and she doesn't have anybody to help her feel safe right now. Like how Uncle Marcus and Aunt Jennifer helped us when Mommy died? Collins felt his throat tighten. Exactly like that, baby. If they hadn't brought us meals and helped watch you while I worked, I don't know how we would have survived those first months. Are we paying it forward? Abigail asked. It was a phrase Collins had taught her when they donated old toys to the children's hospital, passing on the kindness others had shown them. Yes, sweetheart, we're paying it forward. Abigail was quiet for a moment, then said something that made Colin's heart clench. I think Mommy would like Elodie. Why's that? Because Mommy always said the best way to heal your own hurt is to help heal someone else's. Remember? She said that when we took flowers to Mrs. Sonia after her husband died. Collins did remember. His wife had said those exact words. 3 months before she herself would die unexpectedly on an operating table, taken by a blood clot that nobody saw coming during what should have been routine surgery. He kissed Abigail's forehead, fighting back tears. You're absolutely right, baby. Mommy would like Elodie very much. After Abigail fell asleep, Colin sat in his living room nursing a beer, wondering if he'd made the right decision. Inviting a stranger to live on his property, to care for his daughter? It could be seen as reckless, dangerous even. But something in his gut told him this was different. Elodie wasn't a threat. She was someone drowning who needed someone to throw her a rope. And maybe, just maybe, helping her would help heal some of the broken pieces inside himself and Abigail.
He pulled out his phone and texted his brother Marcus. Did something potentially crazy today. I'll explain tomorrow, but I think it might be a good kind of crazy. Marcus replied immediately. This better not involve motorcycles or online poker. Collins smiled despite himself. Neither. I'll call you tomorrow after I know if it's actually happening. He went to bed that night not knowing if Elodie would show up at the library, not knowing if his impulsive offer was wise, not knowing what tomorrow would bring. But for the first time in 3 years, he felt like maybe, just maybe, something good was coming. Sunday morning, Collins was nervous. He'd cleaned the garage apartment the night before, after Abigail went to bed, swept out the dust, washed the windows, made sure the heat worked and the hot water ran. The space was small, maybe 400 square feet, but it had a kitchenette, a full bathroom, and enough room for a bed and some furniture. It smelled a little musty, but nothing that fresh air and time couldn't fix. If she came, if she agreed. At 10:27 a.m., Collins and Abigail walked into the Belmont Library. The Sunday story time didn't start until 10:30, and Collins found himself watching the entrance, his heart rate elevated in a way that had nothing to do with caffeine. Do you think she'll come? Abigail whispered, holding his hand. I don't know, baby, but if she doesn't, we'll still have story time, okay? Abigail nodded, but Collins could see the disappointment already forming in her eyes. And then, at 10:27, the library door opened. Elodie walked in. She'd managed to shower somehow, maybe at a truck stop, maybe at a community center. Her blonde hair was still damp but combed neatly. When she saw them, her expression was nervous but hopeful. Abigail spotted her and immediately broke free from Collins's hand, running across the library, which earned them a sharp look from the librarian. You came! You kept your promise! Elodie caught the flying 6-year-old in a hug, her eyes closing as she held the child. Over Abigail's head, she met Collins's gaze. He smiled and mouthed, "Thank you." She mouthed back, "Thank you."
The story time was about a lost cat finding its way home, and Elodie sat with him, Abigail nestled between her and Collins. After it ended, they walked outside, into the cool November morning. I thought about your offer all night, Elodie said, as they stood on the library steps. I barely slept, just kept turning it over in my mind. And? Collins asked gently. I want to say yes, but I need you to know something first. She took a deep breath. I have nothing to offer you except my time and my effort. I don't have references anymore. Powell's wouldn't give me one after I was let go.
I don't have professional clothes for interviews. I've been surviving on the streets for months, and that changes you. I'm not the same person I was before my mom died. None of us are the same people we were before loss, Colin said quietly. I'm not the same man I was before my wife died. Change isn't always bad. Sometimes it's just different. I don't want to let you down, or worse, let Abigail down. Collins thought about that for a moment. Here's what I propose. 1 week trial. You stay in the apartment, help with Abigail, and we see if it works for all of us. No strings attached. If after a week you want to leave, or if I feel it's not working out, we reassess. No hard feelings either way. Fair? Elodie looked at him like she couldn't quite believe he was real. That's more than fair. That's incredibly generous. So, is that a yes? She smiled, the first real smile he'd seen from her. Yes. It's a yes. Abigail whooped and did a little dance right there on the library steps. Elodie's coming to live with us. Daddy, can we show her the apartment now? If Elodie wants to see it. I'd love to, Elodie said, and Collins heard the relief in her voice. One more night off the streets. One more night with a roof over her head and a locked door between her and the world. Maybe more than one night, if things worked out.
The garage apartment wasn't much to look at, but watching Elodie walk through it was like watching someone discover treasure. She ran her hand over the small kitchenette counter, tested the faucet, watching the water run clear and hot, sat on the old futon that served as a couch and bed, looked out the window at the small backyard where Collins had already promised Abigail they'd plant a garden in spring. It's perfect, she whispered. It needs work, Collins said honestly. The paint is old, that futon is probably due for replacement, and the heater is loud. It's perfect, Elodie repeated, turning to face him with tears in her eyes. Collins, you have no idea. I've spent the last 4 months sleeping in doorways, under bridges, in 24-hour McDonald's until they kicked me out. Having a door that locks, a bed that's mine, a bathroom where I don't have to worry about being assaulted. This is perfect. Collins felt his own eyes burning. I'll get you some sheets and towels. There's a mini fridge under the counter, and I'll stock it with basics. Abigail gets home from school at 3:30, so if you could be there to pick her up... I'll be there, Elodie said immediately. Collins, I won't let you down, I promise. I believe you. And strangely enough, he did. The first week was an adjustment for everyone. Elodie picked up Abigail from Bridal Mile Elementary at 3:30 that Monday, and Abigail came home chattering about how all her friends thought Elodie was so cool. They did homework together at the kitchen table, Elodie patient as Abigail struggled through reading comprehension questions. By Wednesday, Elodie had made spaghetti for dinner, and Collins came home to the smell of garlic bread and actual vegetables. You didn't have to cook, he said, genuinely surprised. I wanted to. Besides, I saw the box situation in your pantry. How much mac and cheese can one 6-year-old eat? You'd be surprised, Collins said with a laugh. By Friday, Abigail's reading homework was done early, and Elodie had helped her start a book report that wasn't due for 2 weeks. She's ahead of schedule, Elodie told Collins that evening, and she's reading at almost a second-grade level. She's smart, Collins. Gets that from her mom, too, Collins said softly. The week trial ended, and neither of them brought up Elodie leaving. It just worked.
3 months in, something had shifted in their little household. The garage apartment now had curtains that Elodie had sewn from fabric she'd found at an estate sale. She'd painted the walls a warm cream color using paint Collins brought home from a work site. There was a small bookshelf she'd found at Goodwill, slowly filling with books from the library's free bin. Elodie had started volunteering at Belmont Library on Saturdays, which had led to a part-time paid position shelving books and helping with children's programs. It wasn't much, 12 hours a week, but it was income, legitimate income. She was rebuilding. Abigail's reading had improved dramatically. She'd moved up 2 levels in her reading group at school, and her teacher had commented on how much more confident she seemed. And Collins had started coming home to a house that felt lived in again. Not just survived in, but lived in. There was laughter, there were home-cooked meals more often than not. There was someone who asked him about his day and actually listened to the answer. He tried not to think too hard about the way his heart rate picked up when Elodie smiled at him, or the way he'd started taking longer showers and actually combing his hair in the morning, or the way he found excuses to linger in the kitchen when she was cooking, just to talk. This was a business arrangement, a trade. She helped with Abigail, he provided housing. That was all. Except, it was starting to feel like more, and that terrified him. 6 months after that Saturday morning at the bus stop, Collins came home to find the backyard transformed. Elodie and Abigail had planted a garden. Neat rows of starter plants, tomatoes, peppers, herbs, even some flowers lined the raised beds that Collins had helped them build a few weeks earlier. Abigail was filthy, dirt smudged across her face, her hair wild. She'd never looked happier. "Daddy, look, we planted everything. Elodie taught me how deep to put the roots and how much to water and everything." Collins looked at Elodie, who was equally dirty, her hair pulled back in a messy bun, wearing an old t-shirt and jeans. She looked beautiful. The thought hit him like a physical blow. She looked beautiful. "It's amazing," he managed to say. "Your daughter is a natural gardener," Elodie said, smiling. She didn't give up even when the soil was really hard to dig. "I get my stubbornness from Daddy," Abigail announced proudly. They ordered pizza that night and ate it on the back porch, watching the sunset paint the sky orange and pink. Abigail chattered about her garden plans, already dreaming of the tomatoes they'd eat in summer. After Abigail went to bed, Collins and Elodie sat outside a little longer, the spring air cool but pleasant. "Thank you," Collins said quietly, "for the garden, for everything you do for her." "She makes it easy. She's an incredible kid, Collins." "He is, but you've helped bring her back to life in ways I couldn't. She was so closed off after her mom died. Wouldn't talk about feelings, wouldn't cry, just kept everything locked inside. Now she laughs again, really laughs." "You did that too," Elodie said. "You're a good father. She knows she's loved." They were quiet for a moment, and Collins felt the weight of unsaid things hanging between them. "Elodie, I need to tell you something." She turned to look at him, nervous suddenly. "Okay." "My wife. Her name was Jennifer. She died during what should have been a routine gallbladder surgery. Blood clot to her lung. The doctor said it was rare, unpredictable, nobody's fault. She went in for surgery at 9 a.m. and was gone by noon. I had 45 minutes to say goodbye, and she was already unconscious. I never got to tell her all the things I should have said." Elodie reached over and took his hand. Just held it. "I've been frozen since then," Collins continued. "Just going through the motions. Work, Abigail, survive, repeat. I didn't let myself feel anything because feeling meant hurting, and I couldn't afford to hurt when Abigail needed me to be strong." "And now?" Elodie asked softly. "Now I'm starting to feel things again, and it scares the hell out of me." Elodie squeezed his hand, understanding exactly what he was saying and what he wasn't saying. "My mom used to tell me that grief isn't something you get over," she said quietly. "It's something you learn to carry differently. The weight never really changes, but you get stronger. Strong enough to hold the grief and still have room for other things. Joy, hope, maybe even love again someday." Collins looked at her, this woman who'd walked into his life when they both needed saving, and felt something crack open in his chest, something that had been frozen for 3 long years. "I think you're right," he whispered. They sat there holding hands as the stars came out, not saying anything more, not needing to. Some things didn't need words. By 9 months, anyone looking at them would have assumed they were already a family. Elodie was working 20 hours a week at the library now, and she'd enrolled in online courses to finish her teaching certification. Collins had helped her buy a used laptop, calling it a business investment in Abigail's education. Abigail was thriving. Her second-grade teacher had pulled Collins aside at parent-teacher conferences to say his daughter was one of the top readers in the class, and her confidence had grown remarkably. "Whatever you're doing at home, keep doing it," the teacher had said. What they were doing at home was becoming a unit.
The three of them fell into rhythms and routines that felt natural. Sunday pancakes with Elodie teaching Abigail to flip them without making a mess. Wednesday night movie nights with popcorn and blanket forts. Saturday morning farmers market trips where Abigail now taught other kids how to pick the best apples. Collins and Elodie hadn't talked again about the feelings growing between them. They danced around it, professional and careful, maintaining boundaries. But the boundaries were getting harder to maintain. The accidental hand touches that lasted a moment too long. The way Collins's gaze would linger when Elodie was focused on helping Abigail with homework. The way Elodie's breath would catch when Collins came home from work, his shirt damp with sweat, muscles defined from years of construction work. The way Abigail had started calling Elodie Ellie with the easy affection of a child who'd claimed someone as family. The way they'd both started imagining what it would be like if this arrangement became something more.
It was October again, 1 year since that Saturday at the bus stop when everything changed. Collins had taken the afternoon off work, rare for him, to help Abigail's class with a harvest festival. Elodie had come too, officially as a volunteer, but really because Abigail had begged them both to be there. After the festival, as they walked home, Abigail between them, holding both their hands, she looked up with those perceptive brown eyes. "Are you guys going to get married?" Collins nearly tripped over his own feet. Elodie's face flushed red bright. "Abigail, that's not—" Collins started. "Why not?" Abigail interrupted with 7-year-old logic. "You like each other, I can tell, and we're already a family, so why not make it official?" "It's more complicated than that, sweetheart," Elodie said gently. "Why? Because you think I won't be okay with it?" Abigail stopped walking and looked at both of them seriously. "I miss Mommy every day. I'll always miss her, but she's not coming back, and I think she'd want Daddy to be happy again. And I think she'd want me to have someone like you, Ellie." Collins felt tears prickling his eyes. "Abigail, I want you to get married," Abigail said firmly. "I've been wishing for it every night on the first star, so you should probably just do it before I run out of wishes." She skipped ahead of them, leaving Collins and Elodie standing there, stunned. "Well," Elodie said after a long moment, "that was subtle." Colin laughed, a real laugh that came from his belly. "She gets her lock of subtlety from me, too, apparently." They started walking again, slower now. "Collins," Elodie said softly, "what do you want?" He stopped walking and turned to face her fully. "Honestly? Honestly. I want to stop pretending that this is just a business arrangement. I want to stop lying to myself about what I feel when you smile at me. I want to stop finding excuses to be in the same room as you. I want to kiss you. I've wanted to kiss you for months." Elodie's eyes were shining. "Then why haven't you?" "Because I'm terrified. Because letting myself love someone again means risking the kind of loss that nearly destroyed me the first time. Because you deserve better than someone with all my baggage and a kid and a job that keeps me away 12 hours a day." Elodie stepped forward and kissed him. It was soft and tentative and perfect. When they broke apart, both of them were crying. "I'm terrified too," Elodie whispered. "I lost my mom, and my entire life fell apart. The idea of loving someone and risking that kind of loss again, it's terrifying. But Collins, I think I'm more scared of never taking the risk at all. I'm not easy to love. I work too much. I'm not great at talking about feelings. I have a daughter who will always come first." "I know all that," Elodie interrupted. "I've lived with you for a year. I've seen you exhausted and frustrated and worried and sad. And I've also seen you be the most devoted father I've ever known. I've seen you work yourself to the bone to provide for Abigail. I've seen you be kind to me even when you didn't have to be. I've seen you, Collins. All of you. And I love what I see." He kissed her again, longer this time, pulling her close like he was afraid she might disappear. When they finally made it home,
Abigail was waiting on the porch with a knowing smile. "Did you kiss?" she asked immediately. "Abigail," Colin started, but Elodie laughed. "Yes, we kissed." Abigail threw her hands in the air. "Finally! I was running out of wishes!" The three of them went inside together. A father, a daughter, and the woman who'd come into their lives crying on a bus stop bench, changed by a 6-year-old's offered hug. 1 year became 2 years. The garage apartment became less used as Elodie spent more nights in the main house, until eventually Collins asked if she wanted to just move her things in officially. "Are you sure?" she'd asked. "I've never been more sure of anything," he'd replied. Elodie got her teaching certification and started working as a substitute teacher, building toward a full-time position. The library kept her on for Saturday programs because the kids loved her. Abigail called her Ellie full-time now, and sometimes, in moments of pure joy, she'd slip and call her Mom. Elodie never corrected her. Collins proposed on a Saturday morning at the farmer's market, the same market where he'd first invited Elodie to join them. He got down on one knee right there by the apple stand, while Abigail bounced excitedly beside him. "You taught us how to pick the good ones," he said, holding out a ring he'd saved 6 months to buy. "And Elodie, you're the best one. Will you marry me?" She said yes through tears. They got married 6 months later in a small ceremony with just close family and friends. Abigail was the flower girl and took her duties very seriously. Marcus, Colin's brother, was best man and gave a speech about how Collins had told him years ago that he'd never love again, and how grateful he was that Collins had been wrong. Elodie's vows included a line that made everyone cry. "A year and a half ago, I was sitting on a bench with nothing left but grief, and a little girl with a heart too big for the world asked if she could hug me. That hug saved my life. So did her father. You both remind me every day that the world, despite everything, is still full of kindness, still full of second chances, still full of love." As they danced at the reception, Elodie's head on Colin's shoulder, Abigail squeezed between them. Collins whispered, "I can't believe you're my wife." Elodie whispered back, "Believe it, you're stuck with me now. Best decision I ever made. Second best, actually. First was listening to my daughter when she wanted to hug a stranger." Abigail looked up at both of them. "See? I told you my hugs were magic." And you know what? She was right. If you've ever doubted whether one small act of kindness can change someone's life, this story is proof that it can. Colin